Yeah, we are very excited. We have an incredible special guest here, especially if you're from the Cleveland area or if you're a Cleveland baseball fan, a Cleveland Indians fan. This guy's name over the course of over 40 years has really become synonymous with the public image of the Indians. He is the Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for the Cleveland Indians. If you want to follow him on Twitter, he puts a lot of good stuff up there at BDBaseball6. It's Bob DiBiasio. Bob, welcome to the Garage Beers podcast.
Thank you. I look forward to this. As I said to you earlier, if Rosie did this, I've got to do this.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've decided we're already going to make this very competitive between the two of you. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, it's been just a wild year. Obviously, I'm sure your head has been spinning through a good chunk of this year, and really, unlike a year you probably have had in 40 plus years with the Indians. So we're just very excited that you joined us, and we're very excited to get into a little bit of that, talk about your experiences, and talk about what's going on with the team and the stadium and all that stuff. But before we get into all of that stuff for now, I love your story. And it's something that a lot of people know, but you're a Lakewood kid. You're a Cleveland kid. You grew up here. You went to college in Ohio. You grew up minutes from Cleveland Municipal Stadium. And now you've been with the team for over 40 years. Just, what's it like looking back thinking, as a kid growing up in Lakewood, you'd be spending all this time with the Cleveland Indians?
Well, I still consider myself incredibly fortunate, incredibly lucky to live a dream. When I was at Ohio Wesleyan University as a freshman, we'd sit around the fraternity house and just ask each other, what in the hell are you going to do with your life? And somebody's, well, I'm going to be an attorney. I'm going to own my own business. I'm going to be a teacher and a coach. I'm going to be a dentist. My father's a dentist. So I'm going to go work for my father and hopefully take over the practice someday. And they turn to me and I go, well, I'm going to be the PR guy of the Cleveland Indians. And they're like, what are you, an idiot? Yeah. Well, that makes no sense. And I just set out trying to figure out how you become a professional sports PR person. And again, this is back in the early 70s when there was no sports management schools, right, curriculum. There was none of that. So I did my research, and every one of the sports PR person back then, it was truly a fraternity. Thankfully, it is not that way anymore, that we've opened it up to females and anyone who chooses to get into this industry. But back then it was all men who were late in life journalists. They were sports writers or broadcasters who were finishing their lives and their careers as the PR person of a sports team. So I said, well, I better get a journalism degree, okay, go along that path and become a sports writer. My father, being two older brothers that went to Ohio Wesleyan as well, both went into education, as my father was an educator. He was a high school football, basketball, baseball coach at Lakewood High. Yes. Assistant coach. He was an administrator, spent close to 50 years. So my two older brothers went into education. One is currently the president at Ohio Northern University. My other brother was a counseling psychologist for the Fairview schools for 30 plus years, now teaches at Baldwin Wallace as an adjunct professor. And I went into sports. But we had to get a degree, a teaching certificate. So my father made sure that we were skilled in something. So I had my teaching certificate in English with a journalism degree, went to Ohio State to get my master's in journalism, and through persistence, connecting with Harry Jones, the PR man of the Indians, bugging him for 4 or 5 years that I wanted to work for him, that I finally got the opportunity, and I've been fooling them ever since.
And then there's like, guys, enough with the serious talk. We got the sorority mixer in 10. Can we just leave it? Can we just go?
Oh, poor Bob. At the beginning of that career, you probably thought you were going to be wearing out a typewriter forever.
Yeah, right, right.
Guess I got 30 years of this before I can do that job.
Yep. And no, honestly, I spent 5 months as a sports writer in Fremont, Ohio, and got the phone call from Harry asking if I was still interested in working for the Indians and come in for an interview. And, again, 43 years later, still doing it and still loving the challenge. As you opened with, Michael, it's been a very challenging year, not just COVID and protocols and all those things, but all the things that have been happening with our organization when it comes to a team name change and lease negotiations and things of that nature. So yeah, it's been a unique season for sure.
Yeah, you could say that. But the Indians are the Cleveland baseball team is always famous for having unique situations and things happening, and it's always you at the forefront of that. You ever feel like, hey guys, like cut me a break for a second, like
Yeah,
I'm on the railroad track here and the train's coming, and like please cut me a break.
That's the beauty of it, is the challenge each day. All of us in our lives have routine, right? I mean, in our sport, we go to spring training in February, we open in April or March 31st. You open the season and you play 162 baseball games. You hope you're playing in October. There's certain routine things that happen as part of that schedule. So it's the challenges, the curveballs, if I may say, that are thrown at you that keep you on your toes, make this an exciting industry. And of course, all the people you get to come across, not only fans who are just incredibly awesome, because they're all over the board.
Oh yeah.
They can be as nice as can be and as mean as they can be, but they're all passionate about the baseball team. And those challenges are what keeps you going.
Yeah, I would imagine, over time, I would imagine this year though you probably encountered some of the meaner ones, maybe a little more frequently this year.
Yeah,
than in years past.
I thought about pulling out the old trick with some of the letters I've received regarding our name change. Pulling the old trick out is sending the letter back to the person if they were man enough to leave a name and address. Most of them don't even sign their name or
Right.
return address to the letters we've received. But those that do the old trick of sending it back saying, just want you to be aware, Mr. Smith, that somebody's been using your name and sent me this horrible, uneducated, unintelligent, mean-spirited letter, and they're doing it under your name. And I wanted you to be aware of that. I didn't pull that trick out, but there are I just tell you guys, there's a number of those that have fallen on my desk that I wish I would have pulled the trigger on that one.
As you can see, this person is the dumbest person I have ever received a letter from.
Then you come to your senses and go, all right, let it go.
Yeah, I'm not calling you dumb, but the person using your name
is dumb. Exactly.
Dumb. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you started with the Indians in 1979, which is awesome. And it's just fun to look back. It's fun to look back at you're working PR, but you're working with players. The team has players, Andre Thornton and Dwayne Kuiper and Toby Harrah. Bobby Bonds, I think, is awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously, Lenny Barker, Mike Hargrove, Rick Manning, all those guys on that team. So what's that like for you? You take over, you start in the late 70s, early 80s. You're a kid taking over in PR. You finally get that dream job. What are the ropes early on? What's life like as a member of the Cleveland Indians?
Well, all I can tell you is I'm not sitting here today if it wasn't for Dwayne Kuiper, Captain Kuip.
Yes.
He put his arm around me in 1980 when I became PR director at 23 years old, because Harry Jones chose to retire. And
Wow.
Gabe Paul gave me the job. He and Phil Seggy said, kid, go for it. We like what you've been doing. It's yours. Go for it. Let's see if it works. Didn't take a vacation day for 3 years. Didn't want him to know that I wasn't prepared to do this job. But if it wasn't for Dwayne Kuiper, who put his arm around me and said, I'm going to help you navigate a big league clubhouse because this place isn't easy. And if you remember back in the 70s, they were going through a whole lot of player relations issues. Lately, almost 30 years of player relations peace in the game of baseball. But back then, 1981, just a couple years after I started, there's a strike. And then there's another one in the early 90s.
Yes.
So he said, this room, this clubhouse is not easy to navigate, and I'm going to help you. And again,
That's awesome.
I'm not here today without Dwayne Kuiper taking an interest in me and helping me. Dave Garcia, Jeff Torborg was our first manager. My first year, he gets fired mid-season in 1979. And I don't, I'm not used to this sort of thing where all of a sudden a friend of yours who you became close with, all of a sudden gets fired from his job as a baseball manager. And, so your head's spinning, but Dave Garcia takes over, who's one of the greatest human beings that ever walked the face of the earth. Loved that man dearly. And he, like Kuip, helped me out. Didn't have to help a young kid out, but he did. In those early years, just some hard-nosed baseball players, as you said, like Toby Hara. It really was an eye-opener because just a couple of years earlier than that, I was a fan paying 50 cents to sit in the bleachers and watching these guys play. And now all of a sudden I'm right amongst them all and trying to help them any way I can. And you've got 21-year-old kids coming up trying to show what they're all about. And you've got 36-year-old guys who have 3 kids, some of them teenagers. And so it really opened your eyes to what a team, how it comes together, the different age groups, backgrounds, cultures. It's really an amazing thing to watch happen in front of you. Like right now, we have 5 different countries, maybe 6.
Wow.
Represented on our big league roster.
Yeah.
So you talk about food and fashion and music and culture and the whole bit, and how these players from 5, 6 different countries come together for one reason, is to be a team and win.
Sure.
And how does all that happen? How the leadership and all that? That to me has been the most exciting dynamic to watch over these years. When you see guys from completely different backgrounds, getting along every day from mid-February to hopefully the end of October, almost 8 months, they're living together and they don't beat the heck out of one another.
Most of the time. Most of the time.
Well, we've had that. We've had that scenario that with writers like Mel Hall and Paul Hoynes, I remember having to try to get in the middle of that scrum. Until Lenny Barker and a few others, came over and took charge because they saw a little guy getting his butt kicked as he's trying to get Hoynesy and Mel Hall away from each other.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but again, that passion that's involved and the intensity. People who aren't involved in the sport sometimes look at a guy and they say they don't care. And I bristle when I hear that, because every one of these athletes, that's why they're a professional. That's why they're in the big leagues, either in MLB or NFL, NBA. There's something inside that makes them incredibly special. That intensity they bring every day. They care. They care an awful lot.
Well, let's jump it around and take it to modern baseball here, Bob. Modern Cleveland baseball. You just talked about your experience at the beginning. How did all of these years experience, these 43 years of experience you have in PR in baseball, prepare you to change the name of the Cleveland Indians, a name that has been in place for 100 years?
Yeah, that's, it's a case study. There's no question. It's an incredible case study
Yes.
in two areas. One, how does a major decision get made? What are the things that intersect that make an organization decide it's time to make a change? And once you determine that, what's the process by which you have to go through to make that change? Our people, I couldn't be more proud to be a part of an organization that came to this realization that it was time to change the name, what we ended up with, how we went about it. All we try to do is the right thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to dealing with our players, dealing with our fans, presenting Major League Baseball at Progressive Field, what we do in the community with all of our community initiatives, assisting the underserved and the youth of our community. All we try to do is the right thing. And that was the basis of this decision. We have a lot of younger leaders in this organization who wanted to do, for the first time ever that I can recall in my 40 plus years, wanted to do a deep dive into the discussion of, do we retain the name Indians in this current environment of the world we live in? And so we began a real deep dive, talking to our players, corporate partners, business leaders, corporate sponsors, the Native American community, of course, our front office personnel. Just wanted to have as much dialogue. I think I moderated, 15 Zoom sessions with a variety of people around Cleveland, some season ticket holders, some not, just to get a sense and a feel for their thoughts on this topic. Very emotional, as you could imagine. But it came down to the realization that no matter what our intent is, I grew up, as you said, in Lakewood, Ohio, grew up with Chief Wahoo, the Indians.
Yes.
Never once in my life did I ever think negatively of the Native American because the baseball team was named Indians. And so there was no intent to demean the Native American ever. But we learned and heard loudly and clearly that intent is second to impact. And to the Native American community, impact, it truly, truly impacted the Native American community. And so we sat back and said, and we heard that from community leaders, corporate partners, some of our players. And so again, the younger leadership group in our building, with a deeper dive, went to ownership and said, here's our recommendation. Knowing this was not an easy decision for Paul Dolan to make, and ended up where Paul said, yep, this is the time. And we want to do the right thing. And let's find a name that makes sense. That process, 1,400 names, every one of them already owned by somebody else. There wasn't some name that popped out of the sky and said, hey, that should be the new team.
Yeah.
1,400.
Yeah.
You guys totally missed out by not calling the Cleveland Garage Beers.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, right.
1,400. That had to be on the list somewhere.
Well,
yeah.
You guys probably have it copyrighted and would have charged a whole lot of money.
Well,
Sure.
I get that, man. I couldn't imagine you guys coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, this process was just so easy." Yeah. Oh, Guardians. That was it. Guardians.
Yeah, the complexities were absolutely enormous in this process. And once we settled in on the name that we felt really resonated with those of us in the office and we thought would resonate with our fans just because of the meaning of the word guardians, loyalty and strength and all the things that, you look for in a name for a sports team. The happy coincidences that followed, such as behind home plate at the corner of Carnegie in Ontario, the Guardians of Transportation on the bridge. That was a happy coincidence once we identified the name.
Wait. What? That was that was a coincidence?
Oh yeah. People, it's so interesting how the media had taken this, that we named ourselves after statues on the bridge. We've had columnists who have covered us for 30 years, all of a sudden wrote columns that, how could the Indians name themselves after a bridge? It's like, where did you hear that? We never uttered those words. We never said that. It's a coincidence, a happy coincidence, just like the DIANS at the end of Indians, at the end of Guardians, another happy coincidence. It just blew me away the way some people responded to the name change and either wanted to be funny with it or whatever. But we were obviously very familiar with the Guardians of Transportation.
Sure.
We were focused on the name Guardians, not the bridge, not the statue. It just happens to be a nice coincidence for us that should work for us, actually, as the years grow along here with that name. So
guys, if we want to do this, if we want to do that, we would call it the Cleveland Bridge statues.
Yeah, exactly.
That was on the list. That was one of 1,400. That was there.
No, actually, that wasn't on the list of 1,400. But I will tell you that there are people in our organization that are going to be going to MBA schools, business schools, other colleges, and giving seminars on this case study. And how do you change a brand that you've had for 100+ years? What is the decision making? And once you do have the decision made, how do you go about the process? And again, couldn't be more proud of the people that were involved in day one of that entire project. I think we hit a home run with the name. I'm fully in support. Anybody who heard me at a Kiwanis, a Rotary, a Chamber of Commerce lunch for 40 years, I always answered
every weekday
about our name, saying there will come a time when we are no longer the Indians. And I don't know when that will be, if it's in my lifetime as an employee, in my lifetime on Earth, but we will not be. And again, I've been saying that for 4 decades. It just so happens that the events of the world made that decision, and the intersection of the decision happened where we made that announcement.
They're like, we got to do this before Bobby D decides he's not working here anymore. Like, he needs to be a part of this. Now, one of the things we talked about, listen, we went through we were having a great time with it on the podcast because it was inevitable. And then the announcement happened and we started going through a list of names, and it always kind of came back to Guardians, and that was there. One of the things that I think was such, I don't know how this got thought out, but I thought it was a great move. You guys just kind of ripped the Band-Aid off. There was no big announcement. There was a little couple leaks in the media. You started seeing a little smoke, like, oh, this could be happening sooner than later. But there wasn't this big, like, oh, draw back the curtain on this day 7 months from now and all that. It just was like a video got put out on Twitter, and it was like, hey, we're the Guardians now.
Right.
I thought, what was the thought process behind that? I thought that was just an awesome idea.
Well, yeah, you sit around, you talk about how are we going to do this? What's the best way? When we were able to secure Tom Hanks to do the narration.
Yes.
I think that also changed a little bit of the process of, let's just on social media throw out the video, which I thought was incredibly awesome by our people. Nick Gambone and Steve Asbury and our production crew. We didn't go to Hollywood and ask somebody to put a video together for us. Our guys who do our ball games 81 times a year and hopefully more with October baseball, they put the video together. And we got Tom to do the narration and the Black Keys to help out with the music. And we thought, this is powerful. And that's all we need to do. Let's just get it out there and let people absorb it on their own time frame. Some people, it was amazing once we put it out to just sit by your phone and look at text coming in, right. Twitter responses coming in, emails coming in, as throughout the day, people doing their own business when they embraced it, when they were able to connect with it. And I think brilliant move by our communications and marketing department to, as you said, instead of shooting off cannons and fireworks and all of that, great, just let it flow and introduce the name in that manner and just let it percolate. And again, and then later in the day, have a formal press conference. Again, I thought it worked wonderfully.
Tom Hanks, we know you're listening. Obviously, if you want to come on and talk about that with us, please just shoot us an email.
He's been just an absolute remarkable man.
Yeah.
I will share this with you because I had the privilege of dealing with him for about 4 to 6 weeks, emailing him back and forth as we were going through this whole process and putting the script together. And just to tell you what kind of remarkable man he is, how gracious and generous of his time. There were some people who sat there and I wonder how much the Indians paid him. Well, we didn't pay him anything. He did it for free.
Nice.
He did it because he loves Cleveland baseball. For those who don't know his history,
yep.
He was an intern at the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival at Lakewood, Ohio, at my high school. Was host to Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival in the summertime. And as a 19-year-old intern, that's where his life started. So he did the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival at Lakewood High School, and he sat in the bleachers for 50 cents at Cleveland Stadium because he had no money. That's how he became a Tribe fan. He's from Oakland.
Right.
And so he became an Indians fan because that was his age of growing up and diving into the craft that he ended up becoming one of the greatest at in the history of filmmaking. But it started in Lakewood, Ohio at Lakewood High School, and that love affair with us. So he's like, I'm honored to do it. I'm traveling in Greece the whole month of July. I'll get to my phone, and long story short, he gives us 4 versions of the script and says, tell me which one you like, and I will hopefully get to a better microphone to do that version for you. Now, Tom Hanks could have done one version over his phone, sent it to us and said,
this is amazing.
That's it. Here you go, guys. Hope it works. But
Yeah.
that's not the kind of man he is. That's not the kind of human being he is. He gave us 4, and we picked the one. And I went back to him and I said, hey, you're on vacation. You're traveling with your wife through Greece. We couldn't be more appreciative. And the one version that we like is incredibly workable over your phone's audio. So we're good to go. And so when I sent him the email when the video was done with the news release and told him the plan of attack and how we're going to do it, he sent back a note saying, the video is fabulous.
Nice.
I've got Guardians fever.
Go on, Tom.
All right.
Let's go.
All right.
And then, honestly, 2-3 hours later, he sends me another email that just says, so how's the reaction? How are things going? I mean, he was that invested.
Come
And
on.
just
Yeah.
think that the two guys I mentioned and a lady in our office, Tara Hewitt, who wrote the script, beautiful words. As soon as he sent me the note about the video is fabulous, I sent that email to those guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
saying, you know, an Academy Award winner, just thought the world of your guys' work. So feel
Right.
good about yourselves.
Let's go.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That'd be it. I'd probably be like, you know what? I think I have to quit. I think I have to quit. I'm done.
I'm retiring.
It's been, I know I'm only
Or it-
27, but I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Or at least you go off to the corner and cry a little bit, say, hey, this is unbelievable.
By the corner, you mean the corner bar, and
Yeah.
you mean
I
drink
need
a bunch of
yes.
beers to celebrate.
Or,
I
or
need a minute.
around the
I need a
corner
minute.
in Lakewood. I don't know. Whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing about Tom Hanks. He always says his favorite restaurant when he lived in Cleveland was Mary Art's, the
Yeah.
pub on Detroit Road in Lakewood. Mondays and Thursday nights, best tacos.
There you go. There
Best
you
tacos.
go. Yeah.
So you guys made so many good decisions. And for the most part, listen, again, there's the people that are just crotchety.
Yeah.
You can't change the name Indians. You're changing history,
Absolutely.
blah, 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 blah. I loved a lot of the things you did. The new C, I think, is really cool. It's not a block C. It's a cool looking C. There's been feedback, so I just want to hear your opinion on this. So I'm like nervous to even ask the question, but I'm just going
No, about the logo, you know?
about the logo.
Yeah, yeah, no, there's people who like it, people who don't. People want it to be more forceful. And I think over the course of the next few years, you'll see iterations of a new logo that may, you know, some people may end up liking more or less, or who knows, but that's all part of it. Is you're not going to please everybody. But hey, we've got jerseys to sell. So 3-4 years from now, we'll have a whole new,
Hey.
you know how that goes. How many different jersey styles with the silver trim and this and that over the course of the years with block C and script.
Bob, I got kids. I got
Yeah.
kids. I can't afford all this. Stop it.
But yeah, there's no question that, you know, we heard that loudly and clearly from some. Twitter had a whole lot of fun with it. Social media had a ton of fun with the logo, and people, incredibly creative people out there
Yeah.
providing their thoughts as to what the logo should look like. I mean, to me, it was awesome. For one thing, it made me feel, okay, people have actually moved on, that they understand that the move was made, it's
Right.
done. So let's move forward. And as they move forward, one of their thoughts was, well, here's what I think the logo should look like. And again, there were some terrifically creative examples that were sent our way. And I thought that was pretty cool.
It gave me major league vibes. The G, like the G with the ball. Like, is that like a happy coincidence too? But
What are all these
Well,
happy
that-
coincidences?
Yeah, we
that-
live by happy coincidences.
Yeah.
That's the way life should be. Everything should be a
Right.
happy coincidence. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really asked that question of our art department, the marketing branding people, if they were trying to get that vibe going. My sense is probably not, but
Was that all in-house?
you know, well, we hired
Everything
a
in-house?
company- We hired a company outside to do the logos.
Got it.
Yeah, so that was done by somebody else with our people in charge. But I don't know if you are aware of this, but I had script approval of the movie Major League.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, yeah. And
You did
also
great, Bob. You did
I had
great.
I had script approval of the movie Moneyball of the Indians related issues.
Yeah.
I'll never forget with Major League though, Hank Peters is our president at the time. His secretary buzzes me in my office and said, hey, can you come, and Hank wants to talk to you for a second. So I go running back to Hank's office. And he's got a stack of paper on his desk about that high. And he pushes it towards me and he goes, for some reason, the people at Major League Baseball think it's a good idea that they do a movie about us. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. He goes, you ever watch The Sting, the movie The Sting? I said, well, of course. Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Oh, no.
He goes, well, the gentleman who was the Academy Award winner, the writer, producer, director, David Ward, grew up in Shaker Heights, big Tribe fan, has written this baseball movie. So here you go. Have fun with it.
My gosh.
So this guy does The Sting and Major League and a number of other films, of course. And so back then, you know, I'm going through the script with a red pen. They said, do your stuff in a red pen and ship it to us. So I ship it back and he gets on the phone and we go over it and there didn't change anything that I asked. I was like, are you kidding me? There's no tags on lockers when guys are cut in spring training.
Right.
You know, you don't cut somebody with a tag on a locker. And they go, we know that. It's just Hollywood. So those little things. There was a Rocky Colavito reference that I said, you cannot do that to my man, Rocky. No way.
Wow.
And he took a little reference out that they did.
Man, behind the scenes on
so
that.
we had a blast working with them, getting the film, having the premiere here in town at Playhouse Square. Big party at the Galleria. That was really one of our whole team was there at the premiere.
With Willie Mays Hayes.
It was one of the more fun aspects of this job, I can honestly tell.
Oh, what a story forever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a part of that. I do have one quick question for you. We want to talk a little bit about the stadium because, wow. But
this ballpark?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
well, you can't call it a stadium.
Oh, sorry, a ballpark.
It's a ballpark.
My fault.
That thing down on the lake's a stadium where we used to play.
I stand corrected.
We are an intimate baseball only ballpark.
We would like to talk to you about your intimate baseball only ballpark.
Hey, I'm up for that. Yeah.
But we did. So we asked you, and I think your answer was awesome. And that's what I've been telling people. Like we asked you about the logo. And that's what I've been telling people. If there's enough feedback, they're going to go, oh, okay, well, maybe we got to look at this. And so nothing's set in stone regarding that. I have to call you out on another question.
Well, it's set in stone for the next few years.
For now,
yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I have to call you out on another questionable thing that happened on your watch. And this was way earlier in your career. Yeah. This was in like the very beginning of the 1980s. There was a thing called the Cleveland baseball bug. Whose idea was that?
Yeah. Oh, my God. I'll back it up to a great story that our promotions department decides that we're going to get the San Diego Chicken to come to Cleveland Stadium for the first time ever. So we do this deal and Gabe Paul sits there, our president, and says, you're telling me we're going to pay this person to get into a chicken costume and we're going to pay them $10,000
what
to have an appearance fee? He goes, no way in the world. And we said, well, that's his going rate. Minor league teams are paying him that. And Gabe comes up with this idea. You tell him we're going to pay him $5,000 and I'll give him $1 for every person over our normal attendance, which was something like 18,000 people.
No.
We get 37,000 people.
That was a bad deal.
Gabe he's livid. He's just, and now the chicken's show is he doesn't appear until like the bottom of the second inning. You know, he wants people to wonder, where is he? He's looking around the ballpark. Where is that? What's going on? And he decided at our place, he's going to get on the roof of Cleveland Stadium.
Oh.
And just walk around the roof by the light towers and see if anybody notices him up there in the bottom of this. Well, I get a phone call in the top of the second inning from Gabe Paul sitting in the press box. Where the hell is that chicken? I'm like, Gabe, he's doing his entrance. The hell with his blankety blank entrance. You get his ass out there in the crowd right now. We're paying him a lot of money. And he fires the phone down. And so I look up and in right field, and all of a sudden I see him. And now the buzz around the ballpark and people are pointing. And then he got down on the field and did his thing. And oh my God, it's one of the things we talked about. All the people who worked for the Indians at that time, anytime we see each other, we always just look and go, chicken. Remember the chicken? Gabe Paul paid this guy instead of 10 grand. He ended up paying him like 25. It was the most he ever made. It was,
God.
oh God.
Where's the chicken? I don't know. I think he's on the roof.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. For 25 grand, the chicken's walking on the roof.
Yeah, so we decide, well, we should think about this. So we do Tom E. Hawk. We do the baseball bug. The baseball bug was a young lady who came from the Barnum Bailey Ringling Brothers Circus in Florida, the academy that they had for people to be in circuses and in different outfits, clown outfits, etc. And now all of a sudden the mascot craze is going on. And so that thing was pretty hot and heavy for people who thought, well, this could be, the chicken, Ted Giannoulis is making some money here. I'm going to get one of these costumes and do it. And she slipped on the top of the dugout during a rain delay and blew out her ACL. And oh my God. So yeah, it's
a dangerous place to be in Cleveland if you're a mascot.
Yeah, it didn't go well until a gentleman by the name of Dennis Lehman, who was our executive vice president of business, right from our Cleveland Stadium days, transitioning into Progressive Field here, came from the Phillies and was part of the crew that created the Philly Fanatic with this company out in New York. And so when he came in, he scrapped the base bug and the Tommy Hawk and all that and said, we're going to do this the right way. He created with the company out in New York, Slider. I think that was 1990. And Slider's been a big hit ever since.
He was at Slider came to my 5th birthday party in
Oh,
1990.
I like
His first year as a mascot.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your intimate baseball watching facility ballpark that sits at the corner of Carnegie and Ontario. Let's talk a little bit about Progressive Field, because the other thing that was announced, there's paranoia in the city for such good reason, right? We lost the Browns many years ago. There's paranoia that there's always another team that's going to leave. And until it was announced that there was an extension on the lease, the paranoia was the Indians are going to try to leave. We got my buddy Joey here. He lives in Nashville. It was like, oh, they're going to Nashville. This is what's going to happen. They signed the lease, and not only do you guys extend the lease, but then you announce more ballpark renovations and additions. And I'm going to tell you, I just read an article about this. It was just one of those clickbait articles, like best stadiums out there, and Progressive Field's always like top 10.
Right.
And it's stunning to me that it's a 30-year-old ballpark almost.
Well, we're eighth oldest.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it feels, you watch Texas opened what, 2 years before?
A year
before?
Yeah.
And they're already in a new ballpark.
Yeah.
Now, granted, they do things crazy down there. But
actually, let me take that back. Texas and us opened the same year.
That's what I thought.
The year before, Chicago and Baltimore opened.
Baltimore.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Baltimore and Chicago opened, and then there were 4 brand new ones. We were one of the 4. And typical around the country, when all of a sudden the revenue generation provided us the financial wherewithal to put a championship caliber team on the field. Because at that time, our payroll with Albert and Kenny and Sandy and Carlos and Omar and Manny, Charlie Nagy and all that was only $55 million. And the Yankees were at like 63.
Right.
And then 5-6 years later, the Yankees can jump to 190 million because of different revenue streams, the rights holders, cable television, that issue, sports marketing, and our market size could maybe get to a $90 million to $100 million payroll, just because there aren't enough eyes or ears in our market area as there are in the major markets, of course. And so all of a sudden, we're walking into this building with a team that just thumped people.
Oh,
And that was one of the greatest periods of time. People don't truly realize, never before in the history of baseball did a baseball team sell out a season. Ever. And that's selling out the first month and selling tickets as the season would go on. We sold out before game one.
yes.
A whole year.
We remember. I remember the lines, the day tickets would go on sale. Just
It was
crazy.
It was just the convergence of 5 things that will never, ever happen again. Came together to create this incredible anomaly that all of a sudden we're sold out for 5 straight years. Never happened at Wrigley, never happened at Fenway prior to us. It did happen afterwards at Fenway. Denver also got in the craze of sellouts when they opened up their brand new ballpark. But it never, in the 100 plus year history of baseball, it never happened. And all of a sudden it happens in Cleveland, Ohio. But again, there were things that happened that will never happen again for something like that to occur. But it was just such an incredible feeling for those of us in our building to present Major League Baseball to the fans of Cleveland in such a beautiful way with a brand new baseball only ball.
Baseball only, intimate watching facility.
Intimate, close knit. I mean, Bob, when I look back on those teams, it's just, it gets crazy. Like, people don't realize, like, Manny batted 7th in that lineup. 7.
Yeah.
What?
And Manny can go down, I would argue with anybody over a beer in a garage.
Let's do it.
That Manny in his generation was the greatest right-handed hitter of his generation.
Yes.
Now, you could argue Miguel Cabrera, of course, is part of that generation. Now you've got Barry Bonds and Ken Griffey Jr. and a couple others maybe on the left side. But watching Manny work as hard as he did with Albert, as hard as he did, and Jim Thome, these guys worked their tails off, hit for hours till their hands were raw in spring training. It just wasn't natural. A certain ability is natural for an athlete, but they worked their tails off.
My favorite thing about Manny was watching him run the bases.
Yeah.
He just, worst. But he was like, please just let it go over the fence.
Yeah. I mean, it just watching that team in action, they had an attitude of, we're going to kick your ass tonight, especially when you come into our sold out ballpark. Oh my God, there was nothing better.
Albert Bell, Lee Smith, grand slam. Oh, just the greatest.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But that's the other thing people don't realize about those teams. And then I'm going to ask you about the intimate ballpark that's going. The Indians at one point in the 90s were like the top selling merchandise team in the league.
Again,
I remember being in New York City and seeing more Indians hats on trains than New York Yankees hats.
Well, it was weird because as the movie Major League came out and got real hot in the early 90s, all of a sudden in Europe, there's nothing but Chief Wahoo hats for some reason, which got us on the list of being one of the top selling teams in pro sports. And we're like, what is the phenomenon around that? And then all of a sudden you get really good and you're playing in October with guys like Eddie Murray and some Dave Winfield, some big time names, but also the up and coming guys like Omar and Kenny and that whole crew. And yeah, we were the hot item at the time.
So let's go back to the ballpark real quick, because from the time it opened until now, there's been improvements. There's been changes. You put in one of the coolest video boards. I think what you guys did the last time you did a major renovation was one of the cooler things. We're putting in all those local restaurants and the bar and all that stuff. Insanely popular stuff. So for those Tribe fans or future Guardians fans who maybe haven't seen the plans yet for what's planned for the stadium, what, if you could just fill us in a little bit, what should we be expecting from the stadium there?
Well, I think the biggest one, and I don't know if we are 100% sure exactly what we're going to do with it, but the Terrace Club. So down the left field line, that whole area needs a complete refresh. When we opened up in '94, it was a membership only restaurant.
Right.
That had 2 sittings. And as we were selling out, people would come to the ballpark, have dinner in a air-conditioned area, watch batting practice, then go to their seats. Then the other group would come in right at game time and hang out as long as they wanted. But you had to be a member. And that process, that amenity had lost its luster over the course of 25 years. It just isn't the same. So when we became 25 years old, we sat and discussed, what do we need to do for our fans? What do we need to do for our younger fans? And the social gathering concept. So we went to our architect and said, what are you doing around the world that's you're building in facilities today that we don't have? And it was all the social gathering. And never in my mind would I've ever thought that we would sell a ticket with no section number, no row number, and no seat number. And all of a sudden, in front of the corner bar in right field with the drink rails, that's free for all. There's no section number, row numbers, and it's the most popular spot in our building. So how do we recreate that? We did a little bit of it in left field in front of the home run porch area. And how are we going to handle the Terrace Club? And then wanting to try to create an experience in the upper deck where you can actually walk from the left field foul pole to the right field foul pole and not miss a single pitch.
Yes.
And not watching it on a monitor. How do we open that up? Still have seats above a walkway, and how do you keep that experience that you're not watching it on television as you go to the concession stand, and how do we handle that area of the ballpark? But our renovations with the 13 different local restaurants, the corner bar, Heritage Park, the bigger area in center field, I think it works. You know, we have to figure out what we're going to do up in right field. The cargo boxes, you know, are going to be addressed for sure as part of the renovation, and what we do exactly up there to benefit our fan is all in discussion. So, but I think we have a track record where whatever we do, I think people are going to enjoy, and
love it.
They're going to enjoy it. Hopefully they realize, as I stated maybe an hour ago, all we try to do is the right thing. And in this scenario is what's right for the fan of today and the fan of the next 20 years. What are they going to want? And that's where architects, designers who have a pulse for this sort of thing are going to work with us and be partners of ours to not only make changes that are cool for today, but for the next 20 some years. Because this ballpark, while it needs some infrastructure assistance and help because of its age, we're not out looking for a whole brand new building because this is still a pretty cool place to come to.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and it's a point of pride for all of us Indians fans. So this is what happens. See, Bob, we talked about it a little bit before we came on. You come on, you tell some of the best stories we've had, and all of a sudden we look down and it's like, oh, an hour has passed, and we told Bob we'd be out in like 30 to 40 minutes. I'm going to end this on one last question because you've been through so much with the Indians, and you are so ingrained in the organization and what the Guardians will become and all that stuff. This is such a softball question, but what's your favorite part of your job?
Well, the challenge every day the challenge, but what we mean to people, for everybody wants to talk in terms of sports as if you don't win a World Series or you don't win a Super Bowl, then you failed. And for those people, the 99% who are sports fans, they absolutely know that it has to be about more than just wins and losses to keep me passionately connected year after year for my entire lifetime, passing it on to my children. My mom and dad or aunt or uncle passed it on to me. Now I'm passing it, and that's more than just wins and losses. And so what we're able to do to connect generations, what we do in the community to, again, help the underserved and promote the game of baseball, and to be there when we have an issue like the digital divide, when kids had to go to do virtual schooling. And we learned Cleveland, Ohio has the 4th worst connectivity of any urban center in America.
Wow.
And now these kids aren't going to school. So what can we do? We're a company of maybe 400 or so, including 175 athletes.
Right.
Yeah. So we're not a huge company, but what can we do? Because we're such a public face of our community. And we dove in and we're able to assist with our vendors, with resources, finances, and an ownership who wants to help. We were able to really make inroads on allowing kids in the city of Cleveland to be connected for their schooling during the pandemic. That's the coolest part of the job, is what we mean to people, how we go about doing the right thing in our community, and then having been a baseball player and the son of a coach, watching these athletes do what they do, to see a Fran Mil Reyes,
Yes,
almost hit the scoreboard, to see Mark McGuire hit the scoreboard. I just marvel at what it takes for these guys to play every day. I know this will sound so weird, and I say this when I do speaking appearances. If you ever had a chance to see a baseball player naked, if you ever had a chance, their bodies are black and blue.
Right.
They're black and blue from playing every day for 162 days, 185 days. They play 162 games. It beats the hell out of them. Yeah. And the way they come back every day and have the intensity and do the athletic things that they can do, that's part of the job. I'll never get tired of seeing athletes do things. I'll never forget an old time scout said to me once, because I asked him, I said, I don't see what you're seeing. My dad was a coach. I've been around sports. I was cleaning footballs and helmets at Lakewood High School's locker room when I was 5 years old.
Yes.
My dad was a coach. I was shagging fly balls for Lakewood High when I was 7 years old. I was picking up basketballs at practice. I've been around it my whole life, and I don't see what you see. And we talked about the nuances. But he said something to me that I'll never forget. He goes, if you ever see an athlete do something once, believe they can do it twice.
Right.
Wow.
Which was interesting to me. It was just an interesting from an old time scout that, seeing a guy run down a fly ball or hit a ball a ton or whatever, a young kid, just say, believe that kid could do that again, that he could do that twice. And that always stuck with me. There's so many cool things about being involved in this industry. And again, our role in the community, working for the people that I work for, the Dolan ownership. They're the kindest, nicest, committed, dedicated to our city people that you ever want to meet. All this nonsense when people talk about payroll, they don't understand that nobody in the American League the last 8 years has won more games than us. If people look at that, they go, what? And I go, yeah. Look at our statistics, our wins. Nobody in the American League has won more regular season games than the Cleveland Indians combined in the last 8 years. There's only one team in all of baseball. The Dodgers have won more games than us.
Wow.
We're number 2 in all of baseball. Not the Yankees, not the Red Sox, who spent $800 million more than us on players during that time. And the fact we just came off a pandemic where we're built on ticket sales and concessions, and we had $0 on that budget line because nobody could come to the ballpark in 2020. So we made $0 off tickets and concessions. And they wonder why our payroll had to dip for financial stability for a year. And they think it's the end of the world. And we still have a team that's competing if our whole rotation didn't go down. So now you got me fired up talking about
Let's go.
Wait a minute.
And people should celebrate the fact that we have ownership that spends a whole lot of money in the right places instead of on one player. We spend our money on every state-of-the-art resource at every minor league ballpark, our Dominican Academy, our state-of-the-art facility in Goodyear. There's a reason why we're considered one of the best pitching ninja schools around. We can bring kids up that just perform. It's because we provide and spend the money on every resource possible to make them the best they can be. So long-winded answer to, there's so much to enjoy about what we do, but our role in the community, what we mean to people, to see grandkids and grandparents at the ballpark. I'm going to start to cry.
No crying in the garage. There's no crying.
No,
Bob, there's no crying.
over a beer in the garage. No way.
Tom Hanks would tell you there's no crying.
I set you up. I put it right on the tee for you.
It's fastball out over the middle of the plate.
That's about the only way I can hit a ball at this point in my life is if you set it on a tee right in front of me.
I love it.
All right, Bob. Well, I think that is pretty much going to wrap it up. This was awesome. The stories are incredible. We have, and I feel like we didn't even hardly scratch any part of the surface. So we may be reaching out to you again, Bob, to see if we want to talk a little baseball again in the future. But Bob DiBiasio, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for the Cleveland Indians. Again, go follow him on Twitter. He puts some fun stuff on there every once in a while at BD Baseball 6. Bobby D, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for everything you do for the city, the team, the passion you have for the team. It is very much appreciated.
Well, thank you, Michael, Chad, Joey. My pleasure. It was a ton of fun. Let's do it again, please.